Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Do not let them tell you anything else unless they want to tell you it's a flat earth nation and the golden age is past, because it is. Me and my friends were ready to debate you anytime, anywhere. Welcome. I want to get right at it today, showing that fair use statement, the copyright. I'm going to be looking at a lot of things. No real monologue today. I do feel the, I might look at the pictures, as they say in Espanol, a language you already know because of all of those cognates like importante. You know that's important. You didn't know? You just learned to speak Spanish for free. First to look at, I know I'm not looking at the pictures. I did show the disclaimer. Amos chapter 7, verse 10. Then Amaziah, the priest of Bethel, sent to Jeroboam, king of Israel, boo, Israel, saying, Amos has conspired against you. Oh no, in the midst of the house of Israel. The land is not able to bear all his word. Boy, Amos, they can't plow because of your words. Thus, Amos had said, so they make up a lie. Well, he did say this, I think. Jeroboam shall die by the sword, and Israel must go into exile away from this land. And Amaziah said to Amos, O seer, go, flee to the land of Judah. Well, that'd be better for him. But he was sent to prophesy to them. He's to go eat your bread there, prophesy there, but never again come to Bethel. It went bad. For it is the king's sanctuary, it is a temple of the kingdom. But then Amos answered and said to Amaziah, I was no prophet, nor a prophet's son, but I was a shepherd and a dresser of sycamore figs. That's that's a good resume for a working man. Kind of like me. I was never a prophet. Then boom, hey, look at me now. I was never an artist, but wow. But the Lord took me from following the flock, and the Lord said to me, go prophesy. And what is prophecy? It's the testimony of Jesus Christ to my people Israel. So there were still people in Israel. So that's why he was there. You silly king. You say, do not prophesy against Israel, do not preach against the house of Isaac. Therefore, thus says the Lord, your wife's going to be a whore in the city for money. Your sons and your daughters are going to get part of that pestilence, famine, and sword. And your land is going to be divided with a plumb bob, straight line, right or wrong, and you yourself shall die in an unclean land. Yikes. Wow. But Israel, you are going to Babylon. It was hey, what did they want back in the day? What did they want women to believe? Now this is not a anti-bacon song, but this is the unbelievable level of MK Ultra attack on the people. Go to work, woman. You have the pill. You don't need a baby. You need the money to maintain your lifestyle. And as long as your husband can have that proof he's a man, I guess everybody's happy. 1980, everybody. Go.
I can bring home a bacon, fry it up in a pan, and never let you forget you're a man.
Give her Ajolie, the 8-hour perfume for the 24-hour woman.
I can work till 5 o'clock, come home and read your tickety-tock.
Tonight I'm gonna cook for the kids.
And if it's loving you well, I can kiss you and give you the shiver and fit.
Ajolie, the 8-hour.
Oh, and then she got HVP. HPV. Okay, we're going to be looking at this. There, I had this part for a thumbnail. Let's look at Numbers 24:16 for un momento. There you go. Habla in the Espanol one more time. Un momento means in a minute, for a minute, you know. And knows the knowledge of the Most High. 52 out of 45. We're kind of more looking at, since we're Ha-Adam, you guys know that. Many of you who watch this show, you're a Ha-Adam. And we a damn, and that makes us give a damn about what we're going to end up talking about here tonight. Somebody, if you accidentally kill somebody, you didn't plan it, you didn't have knowledge. Now look at all of these for Job. He knows what knowledge was. It's a lot of figuring out stuff. But it's the 7 that start with these, the the tree, that knowledge, that tree of the knowledge of the good and the evil. It was, again, don't eat that tree. And make sure when I finally give you that wife, it's not good for you to be alone, but you got work to do. Naming all the cows and planting all the trees, and don't eat this one. Skill, cunning, knowledge will be increased. There it is. And then here, you die if you don't have this. Hadat, ha'adam needs ha'adat. That's overworking it. But here it is. So something got sealed up. The words that's butchered, but they were shut up until now, until 2016, when the Spirit Creator put upon me, hey, Paco, time to make a website. I want you to call it Flat Earth Nation de Area Praterita. Golden Age past ruled with a Praetorian leaning, which I wanted to imply it was the rod of iron. So that's happening now. We're going to look, I'm going to slide this one down here to the end where we're going to be talking about this guy.
Then add verse 5 for a reason. If you've ever read Genesis 6, 1 through 4, it's the weird, sons of God.
Yeah, no, you're wrong. You base it on Enoch. What?
The country from north to south, rich to poor. With each victory, the Agnellis claimed loyalty and admiration across social classes. This placed the family at the center of Italian pride. Each successor, from Gianni to Umberto to Andrea, carried that bond forward. Juventus's trophies became a reflection of family dominance. Victories on the field reinforced authority.
If they win, who are these people again? So it's these guys.
For a country that barely had roads. By the way, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
History meets finance.
QR code. This gives you access to my videos before anyone else. Right,
blah, 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 blah.
1899, and Italy was still finding its feet as a new nation. The North was industrial.
Everyone was still finding its feet as a new nation. The information from the pretenders that are releasing it, the Illuminati, the Skull and Crossbones, the Rosicrucians, nowadays the John Birch and Jesuits, they had these machines, they had those buildings, or you're not up to speed.
Fast, but still, much of the country remained rural and poor. That's where Giovanni Agnelli showed up, a man with a military past and a talent for spotting opportunities where others saw chaos. While most were stuck in the past, Agnelli was already thinking about engines, speed, and industry.
And that's the BS they give it. Every country has these people. It's also called the mafia.
What is remarkable is that Giovanni had started as a junior partner and managed to take full control of the company. He began buying up critical patents and introduced modern production methods. These included early assembly line systems and precision engine tooling that put Fiat ahead of its time. But success rarely comes without a crack in the foundation, because in 1908, Fiat faced its first real reckoning. It was the time that Fiat was rocked by a major financial scandal. Rumors spread about falsified accounts.
Let's look up
and inflated share
propaganda
prices. The
too.
entire board
It's a
was scared for
mafia
development.
that's so secret they didn't even know about it. Give me the short version. Mob facts. Does that look good? That looks too long. We're looking for this guy. Give it to me.
P2, Propaganda Do, was one of the most infamous secret societies in modern history, deeply entangled in Italian politics, finance, and criminal activities. Officially a Masonic lodge, P2 operated as a clandestine organization that wielded enormous influence behind the scenes, involving politicians, military officials, businessmen, intelligence operatives, and even members of the Vatican. Its covert activities, exposed in the early 1980s, revealed a web of corruption.
Thanks, computer. Hey, I looked up Obama drone strikes.
I think there's been in the past legitimate criticism that the architecture, the legal architecture around the use of drone strikes or other kinetic strikes wasn't as precise as it should have been, and there's no doubt that civilians were killed that shouldn't have been. I think that over the last...
But that's, he's sorry. You can tell by the way he, civilians that got killed, man. Hey, drone striked them to death.
Several
targeted activity.
Years, we have worked very hard to avoid and prevent those kinds of tragedies from taking place. In situations of war, we have to take responsibility when
Yeah, we lost that war, didn't we? I mean, my son was in that war, and he got involved in a plane. We'll study later, killing these people. And I studied why he got into a flat spin. Why did the Air Force hurry up to get Obama to turn him into a killing machine? Look, was this a battlefield, or was this how they found France when they invented the airplane? They said, we got to do something. This is not caused by two towns or two allies and axes digging trenches and shooting bombs at each other. This was the mud flood or something, right? Colorized version. It's probably copyrighted on the sound, because this is a colorized version of something they found in the Internet Archive. It goes on quite a while. You don't bomb every small house when you're doing trench warfare. This is what they had. This is why they had the Great Stink, and this is why they could build these towns back up, because you could fix that up. All those towns they're living in now and showing off as their capitals are all fixer-uppers. They've been like that. How long? Well, how long does it take a tree to grow in there? How long do we know what really World War I was? How do we know it wasn't pre-Armageddon? As God rode across the earth on his chariot. It's a worldwide devastation. In France, their cathedrals, they fix them up. They're right there. They get some domes made it. In your heart, they really didn't do this. This guy, Charles Babbage, he didn't invent this machine in 1830. That a guy from Microsoft decided, well, I'll let you fix it up. Go ahead. Let's see if it works. Drop his plans. It worked.
999. There seemed to be not enough energy to push them all over the top. What happens in this machine is, he was very clever about managing the energy. When one of the bottom wheels or less significant wheels goes from 9 back to 0, a tab on the wheel energizes a little mechanism here, and it protrudes out. Then at the right part of the cycle, that'll happen up and down the column. At the right part of the cycle, we start from the bottom with these hooks. They come around. If that
You're going to want to see it when they turn it on.
The hook engages the mechanism, another mechanism that pushes the wheel just above it by 1 digit. If that happens to go through 9 at the time, that'll be activated, and the next one will be and right up the column. So if you're a computer person, we're polling the register for carry original value as it comes down. And for that reason, these columns jump up and down. Go ahead, Julie. You will also notice this clanking sound. That is the sound of these big interlock blades. You see that run completely
1830. 8,000 moving parts.
When you don't want those columns to rotate, you don't want them to drift in between the numbers. So that lock comes in, locks up the column, resets all. So you have digits on every column. And then you will see the print cycle happen. The type is going to rotate in a second. There's the rotation, print, stereotype, the tray injections in.
They had the plans, they didn't have the money, so a guy from Microsoft came through. I want you to see the back of it.
How long does it take to learn to do this?
Get ready to crank it, lady.
Okay, let me get out of the way. Go ahead.
It's a vortex.
What the heck is going on here? It's not a DNA model. He would have really had his time if he thought of that. The biggest problem in designing calculators in the 1800s was how do you carry? When you're inning, you go past 9 on a column.
So we heard that part. It's fake, and you know it.
We picked up HPV, but most of the time, nothing happens.
Yeah, most of the times when you're out having sex, you don't get HPV. You might get it, but you might not know it. This guy thinks it's a mark of if you're a man or a woman, if you're one, because he doesn't seem like an active sex life is confined to marriage. He's the expert from University of North Carolina.
Clear or your body contains it. What we're trying to prevent are the diseases associated with it.
I got a pap test. The doctor told me that the test was
time in the body. But I do want to make a point here is that the majority of HPV infections actually clear. So although about 70 or 80% of us humans will acquire HPV over the course of our lifetime, about 70% of HPV infections clear within 2 years of acquiring it, and 90% clear within 5 years. So even though the majority of us get infected, in fact, I like to think of it as a marker for being sexually active. If you've ever been sexually active, you've probably picked up HPV.
Do you think they're trying to make it seem like it's no big deal? And of course, I want you to believe that the recent jab, you can, go check your doctors. This is not medical advice or anything. It's a religious opinion that the jab is going to somehow affect it. The mRNA is it no good? Well, I'm glad to see you, Mr. Singapore person, Zach Macanudo. Thank you for stopping by. Maybe I can get to see you this winter if you're not working or something like that. I enjoyed our talk, Luther, as always. It's a privilege to have known you for these going on 10 years now. A little bit more about the HVP cancers. Smoking cigarettes, smoking a pipe, don't do it. You might get cancer. What causes a third of the cancers?
What types of cancers are associated with HPV?
You really have to think about it in terms of anatomy. There's the head and neck, the mouth, and the upper part of the throat. HPV causes about a third of those cancers. It can also cause cancers, though, of the vagina and the vulva. In men, it can cause penile cancers, less so for men who are circumcised, but it also can cause anal cancer. And that's true for both men and women. Important point here is that your anus is part of your sexual organs.
No, it's not. Wrong. You know, can you name another animal that if we, because we're not animals, but an animal decides, I'm going to circumcise myself so symbolically I can realize I've circumcised my heart, like Abraham and the other people. Can you think of another animal getting together and saying, God has shown men that they're kind of, made in the image of the spiritual and they'll have some dominion. They've trained all the animals. You've seen what they can do with the dog tricks. It was amazing, right? It's the jab and the warts. They're coming. You need to have an oxygen-rich blood supply. Get off of those antibiotics. They're coming for you. They want to kill you. So my son was flying one of these. I looked up MC-12 Liberty. It came into the Beechcraft, just your standard V8 Huron. But this was the spy plane my son was on when it was in a flat spin. They dress it up with these antennas and everything else, but it basically was, a mail delivery plane in the 1940s and 50s and hasn't been improved much since then, but it was rushed through because they were going to use something that is like a modern day tracking device. My son couldn't talk about it. And nowadays when they let those people out, they can only drop hints that they were using something in those drone strikes for Obama that even if you took the battery out of it and it wasn't even, and they're 100 yards away, they could still hear you. It was an art, it was a science, and they used people with a high IQ like me and my children and my wife, and they took him and they turned him into somebody that's only good now at drinking that Fireball whiskey because he almost died and he was still convinced that he was doing it for America, but he got so messed up and confused because they all could see the images of these people on Thursday night raping little boys. A Free Love Thursday, before they had to get ready to go to their thing on Friday. That was a big deal for them. So they got their tracking device based on these planes. It was the Malaysian Flight 370 that killed all of the people that invented the artificial intelligence for the Cargill Group. That was the Bush-Cheney thing. And that when they got that, then they didn't need it anymore. But you don't need to get bored with my family history about, the spy planes they use. There's not going to be too much about it. They got something in Polish here. It's only in one language, Portuguese. My bad. Why would it only talk about the Beechcraft Liberty in one language and it's not in the English? I don't know. But I studied it hard when my son went in a flat spin. And I'm going like, why are they using this? Well, I guess they had to. April 2008, they presented a report that said, we're going to have to get this baby up and running because we just elected Obama. And they're going to say that he's weak on terror in 4 years. And to beat the Mormon Mitt Romney, he's going to bomb these people in submission using something that nowadays is like a tracking device that people voluntarily carry, but it was needed when the Al-Qaeda was killing everybody. It's these guys, they did it. It's the Malaysian flight. I got the knowledge because I've lived these things. I got the knowledge on the GPS. I was a surveyor because I was one of those guys that scored high on the stuff. and they let me choose what I wanted to do. And they said, surveying's good. So I learned it because, Thomas Jefferson learned it, and everybody that was anybody learned how to survey. This turboprop engine that flies that MC, this came out of nowhere too. And it was a big jump. Pressurized cabins in a propeller plane. That's why they use it. That's what they need it for. So they can just hover over those places doing left turns, let the wings ice up, and then people die. There was a crash. There was more than one flat spin. My son survived. The other people did not. So they turbocharge it, dude. It's just seems it's came out of nowhere. So these turboprops can break up. It's hard to recover from spins. You can barely, the bigger Airbuses are not designed to come out of a flat spin. If you go into a flat spin, you'll die. That's why Captain Sully was such a hero, because he had it all the way pulled back. And if whatever this plane was, it says, if it wasn't so well built, it wouldn't have survived that angle of attack. This is the angle of attack. It loses it, stalls, and it can't generate lift, especially if it's covered in ice. That's what caused the flat spins in Afghanistan. Rogers said Obama was responsible for, open quote, the assassination of at least 4 American citizens in drone strikes. It's half true, leaves out important details like context, like he had to do it, They're going to always make excuses for their guys. We didn't mean to kill American citizens. And besides, he had a Muslim last name, al-Awlaki. How could we have known he would have had his son with him because they wanted to go out to a coffee shop? And maybe we was out there. Well, I probably had this pulled up. Drone strikes in Yemen. When did these happen? 2013, wedding procession killed 12 men, wounded each other. Drone strikes Pakistan, Afghanistan, more than 30. There were a lot. And it was all of that Carlyle group that tied into the Malaysian Flight 370. I don't have time to get into all that. So here, I'm going to just go with my gut and deny it. Obama's covert drone war in numbers 10 times more strikes than the Bush. Well, they were perfecting the weapon. They didn't even start designing the airplane until 2008 to have it ready for Obama to threaten the Jonas Brothers. Don't look at my daughters or I'll drone you too, because based on everything we've heard, the Jonas Brothers were horn dogs. MK Ultra horn dogs. They killed them all. If they get in the way, they're going to kill you. Here's a Bible verse, kind of wet our whistle for a little bit. How does this work? RJ and I were talking about this one. There hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. That's what this verse says. Matthew 11:11. Born of a woman, there's not risen one among you than John. Yet the least of you that make it to the kingdom of heaven will be considered greater than him? No way. Greater, heaven's greater. Wow, who's going to be the greatest? Okay, so anyway, there's that. You want to hear what it says? Truly I say to you, among those born of women, there has arisen no one greater than John the Baptist. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. Wow. those guys in the blessed first resurrection, right? Wow. It's just mind blowing. Okay. Look, this is true, I guess, because they're really, I was so suspicious of this because of the AI and stuff. But I guess there really is all of these things, and they're putting it in the middle of the golden age of Christ because we don't believe in their history of it. But I do believe now that there is something called Elder Futhark. And this Germany again, right? Ruin stones. We're not really interested in this. But I did want to prove that there are runic inscriptions, and they fall into these categories. But we don't believe this timeline. I don't want you to. But they even know that they can trace these languages, which is why I was shocked that this just happened a couple of months ago. I'm only finding out about it today. I'm trying to pass it on as good as I can. Where's that video that I looked at? I thought that was good because it was all abbreviated with the AI. This will only take a second. You've been through this drill before. I'm going to find it. I'm going to go back and it'll show what I did to prepare for the show. This was not to prepare for the show, but save your money. Snap-on is better. It's not that much better. It's not 4 times better. Okay, this was interesting. Bullet train thing almost made it on the show. It might have made it on the show. Sonder made it on the show. Meat Productions cut. That was another one of the Babbage things. I don't know about all this stuff. That was interesting. Very interesting. There we go.
In the forests of northern Canada lies a discovery that has puzzled archaeologists. It is a discovery so...
Yeah, this happened a couple of months ago, and I was like, this is fake. They're going to they're going to not hold out the languages. They're not going to give it. They're not going to give the location. But sure enough, he did. I was like, wow.
Carved into its surface were more than 250 ancient symbols that appeared to belong to the oldest known runic alphabet in the world. The inscription was long, deliberate, and unmistakable. It was the entire Lord's Prayer written in Futhark runes, a script used by Germanic peoples nearly 2,000 years ago. And this discovery, found not in Europe, but in the heart of the Canadian wilderness.
Futhark, like Thales. You pronounce that Futhark.
Raised questions that may never be fully answered. And the stone is definitely not modern. The dates it gives make no sense within the known historical timeline, which only deepens the mystery of who carved it and when.
So look, somebody carved it. They can't prove it's fake. A tree fell over, and these guys saw it, and the mystery deepened because now you haven't heard, I haven't heard, because they're kind of leaking it, right? That the archaeology is in an uproar. The middle of Canada has found something from what they say is between 400 800 AD is last time they were using this language, and their best case scenario of the Vikings in Minnesota. How about that, RJ? Was 1600.
The story began with an accident. A storm had swept through the dense forest, toppling trees and exposing ground unseen for centuries. Near Wawa, one fallen tree tore its roots from the bedrock, ripping away layers of soil that had covered the stone for ages. A local man noticed the newly exposed slab while walking through the forest. The slab, measuring roughly 4 by 5 feet, wasn't filled with random scratches or accidental scars.
It's the Lord's Prayer.
Northern Europe. But knowledge of how to read the original system was largely lost by the High Middle Ages.
Sure.
Between roughly 1000 and 1300 AD.
Yeah, 1000. Yeah, that's
system became a forgotten linguistic relic.
Blessed are those who make the 1,335. Check out your Daniel chapter 12.
It wasn't until mid-19th century that the Norwegian philologists finally cracked the code of the ancient runic language. Given this timeline, the presence of a full prayer carved in Elder Futhark on Canadian bedrock raises a cascade of contradictions.
I'm only now finding out about this raised cascade of contradictions, and I'm passing it on as quickly as I can. Here, look at Flat Earth map.
Explorers reached parts of the Canadian Arctic and Newfoundland around 1,000 years ago. There was no historical evidence placing Viking presence anywhere near this region, let alone evidence suggesting they carved Christian texts in Elder Futhark during that era. Yet there was one curious exception. In the early 1600s, Swedish polymath and mystic Johannes Burus revived Elder Futhark symbols in his own esoteric studies. He adapted them into a unique system that paralleled the Swedish language of his time.
They proved that's not it.
Surface exposure dating. In simple terms, rocks act like rechargeable batteries that are full of energy when deep underground. When someone carves into the rock, they chip away the surface and expose fresh, energy-rich mineral grains from the inside. Once these grains touch sunlight, they slowly start to lose that energy, a process called bleaching. By comparing the energy levels of the carved...
It's interesting that they found, some other carved symbols besides the Lord's Prayer in the middle of Canada in Futhark.
Lines against the untouched rock surface, scientists can measure approximately how much energy has been lost.
Elder
By studying
Futhark.
this difference, they could tell that the inscription wasn't recent at all. It gives varying dates, but they get a minimum of 200 years, although some samples give dates that
Yeah, their dates are probably messed up. Anyway, there's the Lord's
they
Prayer.
also would not have had the extra time required for such a labor-intensive project.
Well, it must have been important to them. So again, Elder Futhark is a real thing. They don't mention the recent find. The latter group, it says, disappeared. The last people in the Carpathian Mountains that ever used it, they're saying they disappeared at the time of the contact of those Goth people. They probably couldn't stand their black fingernails and purple hair. No, wait. These are Visigoths. Yeah, they're not the new Goth. I just totally ruined all momentum for this show. One picture for the younger Futhark. The elder Futhark, I'll get it, is similar, younger, struggling to come out of that ditch, hoping a picture of the old Nordic ruins carvings discovered in Canada. So it is a real thing. It's the Columbia One News and Culture. They're on it. The Explorer Web. I don't know. I'm not going to do too much on the Futhark, but they're into it. They were happy to see it. It's like, oh my goodness, deep in the Ontario bush, stone carved with the Lord's Prayer. No one knew it existed. Least expected finds I think he's encountered in his career. He is thunderstruck. 255 ruins alongside the illustration of a boat. We looked at it. Unbelievably, they do admit it is an early Futhark ruin version of the Lord's Prayer. Wait, the prayer can be traced back to 1611? Huh. This initially caused confusion, but the prayer was republished in the 18th century. And so now they believe somebody from the Hudson Bay Company did employ some Swedes. They're saying, maybe they had some extra time to take a chisel out there and work for a couple of weeks. Yeah, they think it's carved around here. Come on, it's Elder Futhark in the middle of nowhere. The people that worked for the Hudson Bay Company used the Native Americans like slave labor, and they brought the pelts to them. They didn't go out there and hunt and have time to like, well, today I'm going to finish the Lord's Prayer. But they'll sell it. They will sell it. So this was the root of the high-speed rail. I don't think I left that one pulled up. No, I'm going to have to look it up. So because I watched one that the high-speed rail 5 months ago is officially abandoned, but again, 2008, they've only wasted a few $1 billion that they admit to since then. They're acting like, first phase, this system will be built in 2 major phases. Again, with the lies, and they're projecting it's going to be done. Watch me. That's how you do. You hold down the left side, then you push on the right side so you can copy it. I'm wanting to open up another YouTube tab. And so again, with that left click, right click thing, but now I've already got it, copied. So I don't need to copy it again. So where is that thing? Well, it'd probably be easier if I just go to the history, and I do apologize, but wasn't that interesting about the propaganda duo, the wrenches, and oh my goodness, look at this. This was interesting. The band bat thing. Here you go. This guy here, 5 months ago,
United States.
it's over.
Their vision was bold. Sleek trains would rocket
Oh,
from
2
San
days
Francisco
ago.
to Los Angeles in under
It's
3
over.
hours, cutting through the heart of the state and linking major cities with speed and sustainability. Then, just 12 years later, the voters agreed. In 2008, they approved Proposition.
So 2008, they approved it. That seems like almost 17 years ago. So, he's Ryan, and this guy looked at himself in the mirror.
Followed in 2009 when the Obama administration awarded $3.5 billion in stimulus grants, calling the project, quote, a model for 21st century infrastructure.
Huh. Well, how's it going?
Eventual extensions onto Sacramento and San Diego. Now, to accomplish that goal, construction would start in the middle of flat, open farmland near the San Joaquin Valley before continuing north and south. That middle section became known as the initial operating segment.
Yeah, that probably was only 1 billion. Yeah, and they kept working. Hey, Ryan.
Beautifully priced tickets. And so it was. By 2017, over 3,000 workers were on site, with hundreds of small contractors contributing to a growing web of bridges, underpasses, and rail beds. The scale was unprecedented for a U.S. rail project. Now,
You know what they said every day? We can do it. Right?
by announcing that California would finally reduce its ambitions. Instead of focusing on the route from San Francisco to Los Angeles, he emphasized a shift to a 171-mile test corridor near Bakersfield. That section was already under active construction, and so the governor called it, quote, a proof of concept. Even so, to many, this sounded like outright concession. A concession.
Yeah, well, come on. Did this guy help?
Relief didn't last.
And I'm not trying to, it's not. This is a plan of Satan, not a Republican Democrat thing. If you think this guy had ever an original thought, and he's not a puppet like every other puppet, Trump, Bush, the Kennedy, I don't care, you name it, Ford.
At that point, the project was beyond salvation. By 2025, a 315-page FRA audit painted a very grim picture, citing, quote, unrealistic completion schedules, a $7 billion funding gap, and structural...
$7 billion funding gap? What happened?
Immediate. Contractors demobilized, work yards emptied, and the once busy construction zones were basically left abandoned. And now it's time to have a look at what was left behind. If you drive along Highway 99 between Fresno and Bakersfield, you can't miss the remains of California's bullet train. They rise suddenly from the fields. Skeletal viaducts, half-finished embankments, and
miles of graded earth that lead nowhere. More specifically, the Fresno River Viaduct still stands, solid and intact. A concrete arch originally built to carry trains out of the city at full speed, it was the first structure finished
Wow.
back in 2018.
So there's money wasted. This is a recent one. I didn't hear of this. Sonder. They went out of business recently. Is this a video? No, a disastrous bet on the short term, though. You can't believe what happened to these guys. Poor Sonder. Sonder was a company that managed short-term rentals. Started 11 years ago. Looks like November 10th. They just shut their doors. They gave the people that were renting, 7,000 people renting rooms. I don't know. I'm going to have to find out. But again, I do think it's important that, you know, you kind of get an idea of where the economy is going, how vulnerable of a situation we are in. Oh no, 2 weeks ago, closed down in one day, filed for bankruptcy, kicked the guests out. 12 days ago, this happened.
It's a hotel horror story for travelers around the world.
We just got evicted from our hotel.
Guests left in the lurch after a major hotel breakup. Marriott ending its partnership with the short-term rental company Sonder over the weekend, citing its default. The chain, a rival to Airbnb, abruptly announcing bankruptcy. And now, guests of Sonder Properties finding themselves kicked out, some alerted by just a sign on the door.
They're saying basically that we need to move everything out with less than 24-hour notice and scramble to find another hotel.
Yeah. So here we are, possibly homeless.
Sonder employees.
Overseas and homeless.
In New York City at Christmas time with 3 weeks notice.
Sonder was once an up-and-coming company, challenging Airbnb with stays in 40 cities around the world and perks like digital check-ins. After struggling during the pandemic, striking a licensing deal with Marriott last year. But now, the company says it's liquefying all its assets, leaving travelers from Miami to Paris wondering what comes next.
All right. Well, this one didn't show the chart, but it's messed up. What? A Michigan company is harboring hundreds? Is that good? Here's another short one.
We begin with this. People being forced out of an extended stay hotel in Center City, Philadelphia after a sudden announcement.
Word came yesterday that Marriott Bonvoy will...
Today, in an unexpected announcement, Marriott said its licensing agreement with Sonder Holdings is no longer in effect due to Sonder's default. Because of this, Sonder is no longer affiliated with Marriott Bonvoy. Guests received a text or email.
This is a planned destruction. The ivermectin thing. That's old news, right?
So we have the Nuremberg Code, which lays out the principle of fully informed consent. So when you've got a vaccine that's coming out, I mean, it's okay, I guess, for a government to believe that a particular vaccine is a really good idea, but that can't be an excuse for violating informed consent by manipulating.
That makes sense. Now, Genesis 6:14, that is what most people came for. You know, I'm going to go on and on about these other things, but we're there now. Let's look, because this is the defining satanic attack of, are you going to be made wise by the Holy Spirit, or will you remain adding to, taking away from Scripture? Let's find out.
Daughters of men, Nephilim, passage. And the bad guys there are the sons of God. So how in the world do we get from verses 1 through 4 to verse 5? And God saw that the wickedness of mankind was great upon the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. There doesn't seem to be any relationship between the first 4 verses and verse 5. But if you know,
There aren't any relationships between those. And we'll get back to them. A little bit of a refresher of Daniel chapter 12. It's a book. You know what a book is. There's words. There's that Hadi Dabarin. They were shut up. They were said, hey, you're going to shut up. And that's in the Aramaic, I believe. Knowledge. We looked at it, the overall word, skill, truth. Don't eat that knowledge of good and evil. I don't see anything about here. Those in the image given something being told here. Worry about this. Adam, make sure when I create a woman out of your rib, you tell her about this. You notice God in Genesis 2 did not have to breathe life into her. No, he did not. There was that tree of life in the middle. River flowed out. He had breathed life and he became a pneuma. We're getting the whole history here tonight. So here's this from the dust of the Nephilim, because they were made in the image. We're going to probably get into Psalm 82. But our God, Yahweh, because our God is a spirit. But when he's in the flesh, because he's teaching a lesson to those rebellious other spirits, he formed a man and gave him the breath of life into his nostrils. He became a living being. You didn't see that word before. You might think you did. You might have seen a version of it, of the wow. So those other things that live inside us, live in the dirt, live at the bottom of the oceans, they have that same life. Everything that God made life, but only humans are that. I should circumcise my heart. I should restrict my sex life to one person. Living creatures. And they're what you call beasts. Beasts are the same way. It's somebody that is not a good person, God would say. He's like someone who breaks a dog's neck. Creeping, living things of the earth. And then, boom. Well, when we look at the Genesis 2:7, Hayim, no bay, no b, hey. What do we got there? Is that life? She was the mother of these. After he died, he was 900. Every living thing. We're learning tonight. Bahe, Bihe. How about just Hayim? This man became a living being. There's a well of springing water. A lot of water connections here. Number 16, no, that is, I'd have to see its suffix or prefix or whatever it had going there. But again, with the flowing water, I find that interesting. He breathed that into the man. He did not have to breathe it into the woman. Breathed it into his nostrils. It's funny. Air is funny because we live in a world of water divided by water. Sweat of your face. That's how Adam was cursed. Okay. So the whole thing about his Genesis 6:4. What is his knowledge? We're going to keep that open. See what he brings up. The difference between 6:5. Maybe we should just go ahead preemptively to Genesis 6. Preemptively accomplished. So when man, what type of man? Adam. Okay, that's definitely is a male. When these males, this Elohim singular, not verse 26 where he said, let us, we're going to do something, because they're setting the stage for the fall of the council in Psalm 82. That was not going to go well for them. It did not go well for them. But so in verse 27 of Genesis, so one Elohim, he created them. Elohim, Jesus created them, gave them a chance, but they blew it. Later, after they realized, you blew it, I caught you, you blew it, he made this man, Ha-Adam, the same of dust. So it's the same male. This was the man. He made them in 27 male and female. Here he strictly made the man. He formed the Ha-man, not the female. And this man was given that living. We looked at that. He was the living being. He placed that man, formed him. You get it. They were having children, and the daughters were born to them. The sons of God, Bene Israel, saw the daughters of men were attractive. I don't remember seeing that man come up as a Ha-Adam. He was, though, that the Ha-Adam daughters saw that the wives for themselves they took, they were beautiful. So they chose them. Well, Jacob chose a wife. So did Isaac. And when they went to sojourn in the land, they visited people that said, tell them you're my sister, which was a half-truth, but it saved his life because they were dealing with not the sons of God, of Abraham and his offspring. They were dealing with people that said, you have to tell them that you're my sister, because they have laws that if that man wants another man's wife, he could challenge him to a fight, and the man has to accept. Hey, I want your wife. That's why the Bible, it's clear there. It's twice. It's Abraham and Jacob, or Abraham. It's Isaac and Jacob that have to save their lives by not claiming that's their wife, because the king said, that we could have taken her, but your God warned me, don't. He is another man's wife. You didn't tell me she was your wife, like you would have protected them. It is basically like the book Dune by Frank Herbert. Fight to the death. I want your wife. You're the real man. You get her. That is the Genesis 6 thing. I gotta close some of these out. Well, let's hear a little more.
The original backstory to Genesis 6:1-4, i.e., the Apkallu story from Mesopotamia that the biblical writer is shooting at for theological.
You see, there you go. Gobbledygook, mumbo jumbo. Your framing of Genesis has to go to the Mesopotamian what? It has to go to the what?
5. And God saw that the wickedness of mankind was great upon the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. There doesn't seem to be any relationship between the first 4 verses and verse 5. But if you know the original backstory to Genesis 6:1-4, i.e., the Apkallu story from Mesopotamia that the biblical writer is shooting at,
Does anybody know what the Apkallu? What did you call it?
Kalus.
AKALU. Let's try that. Shadow, raw, cognate. I don't know. Eastern Polynesian thing. Go ahead with the backstory because we're not familiar with it.
Story from Mesopotamia that the biblical writer is shooting at for theological purposes.
How do we know that? Where do we get in the pattern of looking to Mesopotamia because that's what they're guiding us to? It's a stretch. It's a stretch, money boy.
If you know what his target is in the original story, it makes complete sense.
And you have to go to this story from Mesopotamia, but it would be impossible to understand without the book of Enoch. That's what he will say. You can't understand scripture without external sources.
Will answer the question of why in the Second Temple period you had Jews link Genesis 6:1-4, the sin of the watchers or the sin of the sons of God, with human depravity.
Well, weren't those same people telling Jesus Christ his disciples are going to hell because he lets them eat corn without washing their hands? And Jesus was he upset the money changers table. He was not a fan of what the scribes and the Pharisees taught, Dr. Heiser. He despised it. He came back with a winnowing fork in his hand, wishing the fire could already be judged because he blamed them for leading the sheep astray. They were taking them down the oral law that you're leaning on and saying, well, if those guys believed it, it must be true. Does anybody else see how nonsense that is?
If you wanted to do a study of depravity, and several scholars have, in Second Temple Judaism, they don't blame Adam for it.
They're wrong about everything.
They blame the influence of intelligent supernatural beings who taught humans basically how to destroy themselves more effectively and turn to idolatry.
That doesn't mean they're correct. Yet everybody that is going to, shake their head yes and wait for him to talk about Enoch is just blown away right now because, they've been brainwashed by Zionism to, think that really is Israel today and God preserved them. So there must be something to it. 2 seeds, bad God in the Old Testament, good Jesus. It's spewing nonsense.
And those bad guys are the sons of God from Genesis 6:1-4. Now, you don't get any of that in Genesis 6:1-4 because the writers assume that you know the.
Isn't that assuming that you assume they know because scripture does not mention it? And everybody bases it on a guy who had one job right out of grad school, come and help us, hired by that Logos Bible software was founded by 2 founders from Microsoft. The Faith Life Corporation, the Logos Bible software, 500 publishers, ebook, founded by Bob Pritchard, Kieran Ringner, and Bob's father quit their jobs to develop Christian software from Microsoft. Boom, they must have been loaded with the money and they were ready to pass it out. And they sure got it out, didn't they? Yeah, it's Michael Heiser. He made it onto the television series Stranger Things, such thing. You know, people were talking about that in him. Died very young. You know, just this basically talks about what an expert he is, the ancient aliens, how he can tie it all in. I'm not sure much about these churches. I don't know if they're charismatic, Baptist, or whatever, but he was set up to go run his own school. Did talk about the divine council. There is a divine council, an assembly of a number of deities, Elohim, over which the highest level one presides, the Most High God. Citation needed. Psalm 82, they were talking about it. Why didn't they put that in there? The Babylonians, the Persians had started a religion called Zoroastrianism. The Medes were looking for the Messiah. It was the age of the Gentiles this time. And the Gentiles were the ones who were helping the den of thieves rake them over the coals for money. It's the Titans. The Titans were told in Psalm 82 that they would die in a very specific way, the same way that men do. And the men that die are reserved in judgment as stones. If at least in Noah's flood, El took his stand in the congregation of the Elohim. He's going to judge among the gods. Well, that's his prerogative. If he made them in his image, because there was sin in heaven and God knew it, and he basically said, oh, you think you can do it? You believe, Satan, that he could have done this better than me? Have your shot. Well, we know what happened. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of his other created gods, he holds judgment. He asked them, how long will you judge unjustly? He's caught them judging unjustly, showing partiality to wicked people. He even inserted a musical crescendo. The idea was to give justice to the weak and the fatherless, maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute, rescue the weak and the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked. But no, this judgment said, no, they did not do that. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. And they said it was going to be shaken again. Jesus told them, you know your Elohim. You are sons of Elyon, the Most High God. All of you that he was talking to, the divine council. Sorry, Kenneth Copeland, not every human is Elohim. Nevertheless, you will die like men and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations. Now, they're reserved in judgment as stones. That's why the rocks can cry out. That's why water can come out of stones. That's what they don't talk about in Genesis 2 when they just rattle on about, you need these other books, you need these other books. I'm getting rich. I'm more famous than Rob Skiba.
The backstory, because they're writing to people who lived when they lived. They're not writing to us. So we have to recover that. And the way that that has been possible is through work in Mesopotamian texts and seeing, here's a key thought, seeing where the content of those Mesopotamian texts was known in the Second Temple period among Jews, like the Dead Sea Scrolls. And then
There's no proof for any of this.
realizing that, oh, this is why they're looking at it the way they're looking at it. They knew this other backstory.
It's a whole paradigm shift. They're using other cultures and their scripture to read into that. They're going to have to get into it, that the book of Enoch teaches Satan had sex with Eve and so did Adam. And now there's a serpent seed race, and it didn't have anything to do with God wanted them to obey his laws so they could see that he could raise up and be just if they did it. No, it's all about another seed line, and somebody snuck onto the ark. But it's all proved by the Mesopotamian and Babylonian and Enoch. It's foolish because it's a lie.
It makes sense now.
No, it doesn't.
And then the third rebellion is what happens at Babel. That's the Deuteronomy 32 worldview. Those are the principalities and the powers. They are not demons, the demons of the Gospels. The demons.
So here's going to, he really is taking the clown Nephilim thing out of the picture. You can't have both, even though Paul Stoops loves the book of Enoch as much as Michael Heiser.
The Gospels are connected back to the Genesis 6 incident. But again, they're very low level. They turn people into flesh puppets. Big deal. Okay, you know.
So demon clowns turn people into flesh puppets. They can go out looking for other dry ground to live in, a wet body made of water.
Harm and harass people. But the principalities and the powers, the fallen sons of God to whom the nations were assigned at Babel, and who
the fallen gods that he created to prove that they cannot do it.
Who are the princes of Daniel 10. These are the bigger players. This is the more epic problem because they control most of the world, the Gentile nations, because they've been judged by God. And it's up to Israel, who fails miserably, to be a conduit of blessing for them to come back.
Let's look at Daniel chapter 10. Is he talking, oh Daniel, man greatly loved, understand these words that I speak to you and stand upright, for now I have been sent to you. Okay, that's putting a time stamp on it. From the first day, you set your heart to understand about God, you were going to be the guy. Okay, the powers and principalities of the kingdom of Persia fought for 21 days. Michael, the chief prince, helped the other angel. For I was left there with the kings, plural, of Persia, and came to make you understand what is to happen to your people in the latter days, not then. This vision is for days yet to come. So I'm looking for what Dr. Heiser was talking about here. I will return to fight against the prince of Persia, and when I go out, behold, the prince of Greece will come. So where are these? Let's just back it up a couple of seconds.
And who are the princes of Daniel 10. These are the bigger players. This is the more epic problem because they control most.
So the demons are the princes. Okay, the prince of Greece are those powers, yeah. But Michael is a prince also. And I don't believe he's an Elohim. He is an angelic. Michael is the chief of the princes. There is a prince of the king of Persia. There are powers and principalities. Give me something else, Dr. Heiser.
This is the world, the Gentile nations, because they've been judged by God. And it's up to Israel, who fails miserably, to be a conduit of blessing for them to come back to the true God. I mean, those three things frame the entirety of the rest of the Bible.
So let's do that. Let's talk about the.
Let's go back and hear that again.
The writers assume that you know the backstory because they're writing to people who lived when they lived. They're not writing to us. So we have to recover that. And the way that that has been possible is through work in Mesopotamian texts and seeing, here's a key thought, seeing where the content of those Mesopotamian texts was known in the Second Temple period among Jews, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then realizing that, oh, this is why they're looking at it the way they're looking at it. They knew this other backstory.
Mhm.
It makes sense now.
So when we
And then the third rebellion is what happens at Babel. That's the Deuteronomy 32 worldview. Those are the principalities and the powers. They are not demons, the demons of the Gospels. The demons of the Gospels are connected back to the Genesis 6 incident. But again, they're very low level. They turn people into flesh puppets. Big deal. Okay, you harm and harass people, but the principalities and the powers, the fallen sons of God to whom the nations were assigned at Babel, and who are the princes of Daniel 10. These are the bigger players. This is the more epic problem because they control most of the world, the Gentile nations, because.
So the Gentile nations were breaking free. The Babylonians had Cyrus and Nebuchadnezzar, who were warned. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego saved Daniel from the lions. He puts out a decree that the God of Israel is the Most High God and that all nations must acknowledge that. The Persians, Queen Esther much? That wicked Haman, he did it. They were going to kill all the Jews, but miracles happened. The powerful man of the world married a Jew and he didn't want to kill her. So he saved them and made a decree that worship them. That God there is good. Let's go with that. So we don't need, it wasn't the time of the Gentiles. They were talking about in the New Testament, oh, heal this Greek legionnaire who's Cornelius, whose name is found in archaeology outside of the Bible. He was pretty famous. And they say, because he built our synagogue. They weren't paying for this stuff. They failed miserably. They chose Barabbas. They wanted the oral traditions that said Jesus shouldn't heal on the Sabbath because they considered it work.
They've been judged by God, and it's up to Israel, who fails miserably, to be a conduit of blessing for them to come back to the true God. I mean, those three things frame the entirety of the rest of the Bible.
Nothing frames the Bible but the Bible. The Bible tells us we interpret Scripture with Scripture. We do not find Dead Sea Scrolls, lost books of the Ethiopic Bible, and other things and start down the road of anything that claims to be Scripture is Scripture.
So let's do that. Let's talk about the ontological difference between demonic spirits and the sons of God. So you would say the demons, which people are probably the most interested in, unfortunately, the lowest tier of demonic powers of supernatural
they're the
powers.
Scariest. They can turn their heads.
Well,
around.
I mean, you said meat puppets.
They
Unfortunately,
Which I'm gonna use that.
Blah blah blah.
Right?
Flesh puppets, I believe is what he said.
Yeah. So we're made of flesh. So when people say flesh puppets, like, yeah, sure, big principality sounds scary, but really, when it comes down to it,
You don't
when I
want to be
watch
a
They're laughing so hard because they've got it figured out. It's bloodlines. It's, the Book of Enoch. It's sex with Satan and sex with Adam, and it's Brennanism, Arianism.
in Jewish
And these are
tradition,
not principalities.
these are not the principalities and powers. The principalities and powers are geographical entities that rule the nations. That's going to come
Yes.
later in Babel. Okay.
Same term, but different group.
Different group, because sons of God.
Same term, different group. You have to know that because the Book of Enoch and the Shura, whatever you called it, it wouldn't work any other
is
way.
A term of hierarchy used for members of the heavenly host who operate at a certain level. They have a certain status. Okay. So all Jewish traditions agree that what happened then is
Really, all the Jewish traditions, you're gonna trust them to tell you what really happened. And Christians on the wide road to Atlantis or whatever, Anaki, bloodlines, they're all going to believe you because all the Jewish traditions agree, and you've rediscovered it.
God decides, well, we got it. We're going to send the flood. We're going to cleanse the earth from, all this problem. And it's not just, the sons of God, because the other thing that the sons of God do is they teach people certain things like the art.
That's not, where'd you getting that from, Dr. Heiser?
Art of warfare, arts of seduction, astrology, idolatry, pharmacopoeia. You ever ask yourself, why would Paul connect demonic activity with drugs?
He didn't. And I'm worried about that. I think that the word pharmacopoeia associated with sorcery is used 3 times. The word sorcery is used a lot in the New Testament. This new thing of taking, medicines that can hurt you and saying they're all bad, you can't use them. And I do mean things, like mushrooms and tobacco and other medicines, even heroin that come from plants, and use them correctly. You can't just say it's the demons, it's a drug. That's what they're going to do to you. They're going to say they don't even use the synthetic drugs. They're still using the pharmakia, the sorcery. And they're going to find a reason to kill you. They're not going to let you live if you continue in a lack of knowledge.
Well, this is part of the tradition. It goes all the way back to the Second Temple period, where these are things that you have to think of it this way, that supernatural beings have a greater intelligence about what goes on, just generally in the spirit world. They know what the fabric of creation is about, because again, if you read Jewish texts, the different supernatural.
They love it, don't they? I'm going to skip ahead because this is just driving me nuts.
Never ask the question unless you've come across Deuteronomy 32:8-9. You have no answer.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just that simple. You don't have any answer. Again, an ancient person would know exactly how to parse that question.
So
without even blinking, they would get it. But
that's putting a lot on him. He's teaching people to knee jerk this 2-seed thing. It's dangerous. Let's look at the actual scriptures. The daughter of men, they took wives for themselves. Okay. He warns them. You got 120. Noah is going to build the ark. And this is the one. Oh no, on those days there were tall people. And they chose wives like everybody else. And they became Gibborim, men of renown. Is that so bad? Okay, so Gibborim, right. They were mighty men of old. They were mighty men. Wait. These are good guys. These are good guys. The names of the mighty men of David. The 3 mighty men of David. Benaniah was a mighty man of God. So where are we I get it. You would think that because it mentions in Genesis, 10, Nimrod was one of the first Gibborim. He was a tall, strong man that took charge. He was a mighty hunter. That word means he hunted. Doesn't mean he hunted people. He was a hunter, like Nimrod. So it does mention him 4 times. And then in Deuteronomy 10, it also uses that same word about God himself. Let's go down to verse 17. For the Lord your God, he is the El Elyon, the most high God of all those other, created gods. He is the Lord of the lords. He is the great Gibborim of all the he's the awesome God. He's the mighty. So I've been warning people for years, and I'm warning you again now. You be very careful going down that path of, they're the Gibborim. They're Nephilim. Means they're tall. The Rephaim, the Anakim, they were tall. They had 6 fingers. There were tall people before the flood. There were tall people after the flood. We are all related to the 8 people in the ark, or you are not being made wise. You have to believe Gilgamesh strapped himself on the top of the ark, or some people were there, or there was Nephilim, Gibborim blood in one of Noah's daughters, and it snuck through and God didn't know. But it surely wasn't that he said, this is a contest between nations. You obey my law, and I'll raise up someone like David to rule the whole earth. And he'll do it because he's trying to obey my law. Nobody else did that. Only the God of the Hebrews did. That's what this is about. He did it. Kill those people. Don't trust them because they're going to go to the sex thing, the anal sex thing, the forbidden things, the sodomite things that are warned about over and over in Scripture. And it's the same old tired story. No matter where you drop in, it's going to be, you don't trust the Bible, trust these other people.
You are your destiny is XYZ, and you know it. And basically, you stop what you're doing here, or your punishment's going to be even more severe. God knows exactly what your situation is. You know what your situation is. You have no authority here. You have to use Scripture. You have to use truth. You have to speak truth to lies. And I think the easier examples are the sock puppet thing, because they're just used to, that's to harm people, make people suffer in some way. It's a lot more difficult when people have been sort of trained to think a certain way that is very anti-Christ.
People had no problem with him saying, if you don't believe what we believe, then it's very anti-Christ. But if you question his stuff to the 2 seed Gibborim people, you might as well be a Haziel.
Lots of basically false or just terrible information, about the truth. That just you have to sort of reprogram them essentially, in the way they think. But at the end of the day, you speak truth to lies. You never speak in your own authority. You speak in the name of the Lord's authority, and I'm here because he has granted me, this authority. I'm not doing this on my own. And you have these confrontations. I know people who've had these sorts of things happen. I never have, but that what I'm transmitting to you, I'm getting from them as far as the things that they have found to be the most effective. It's not a shouting match. You don't have to memorize incantations and spells.
Right.
Okay.
Why would
speak
why would
truth.
that even be a part? What's your question here?
We're there. And he says something to the effect of, your disciples can't cast this one out. How long has this boy been this way? I think he was born this way, I think the text says. And then he casts the demon out, and the disciples are like, hey, why couldn't we do this? And his response
Yeah.
was prayer and fasting. Do you have any insights or thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that is about building up spiritual endurance and trust. I think that's the whole purpose of,
Let's drop him in here. 42 minutes left in the video.
Again, why does half a dozen times Paul thinks about resurrection, then his mind goes over here to the nullification, the stripping away of the authority of the principalities. Why would he think that? It's because the Most High, who set up that authority arrangement, has stripped away that authority by becoming a man, fulfilling all the covenants, dying on a cross, rising again, and ascending to the right hand of power. All authority is given to him. This is the missing verse in the Great Commission. We think Matthew 28, 19, and 20. Hey, there's verse 18. All authority is given unto me in heaven and on earth. Okay? So he takes back the authority over the nations. The Most High says, hey, yeah, I gave you guys authority at one time, but guess what? Kiss that goodbye. Because now, I am here to restore and reclaim the nations. So the guy who gave you the authority has just taken it away.
Out of curiosity, does that also play into the already and not yet? Like in Hebrews, it
Yes.
says that all things.
Does it play into flat Earth nation? Does it play into the golden age past? They never address these things. He doesn't even need to show
Accuse
up.
the brethren. That doesn't mean he won't try. But he's a prosecutor without a case. He's got nothing to stand on. If you are a member of this kingdom, which means you're a member of Christ's body.
Does anybody know what Dr. Heiser's eschatology is or was? Let's look him up in the YouTube, because this one's give me a short one. You're too long on Dr. Heiser. Did you make any short ones?
Would Jesus have been familiar with the book of Enoch? Because immediately in chapter 38, a line jumped out at me. It might be a general line that was used. It's talking about the sinners who are judged. It says, it had been good for them if they had not been born. Yet that sounds really similar to something Jesus said about Judas. Is the idea that Jesus may have been familiar with Enoch, is that a reach, or are there some similar phraseology from the book of Enoch found in the New Testament, in the Gospels, or even in other areas of the New Testament that might tell us possibly even Jesus himself may have been familiar with this text?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if we begin with the assumption, and I think it's a sound one, that what Matthew and other gospel writers, for instance, are writing when they have dialogue between Jesus and either his disciples or his enemies, that's a genuine representation of stuff Jesus said. I mean, nobody's going around with a tape recorder, obviously, and the synoptic gospels are different, but it's a faithful presentation. With that assumption, I think it's almost certain that he knew the content. And to me, here's...
Wow. There may have been a book of Enoch, but let's look at Daniel chapter 12. Here's what we got. A chance to be made wise. Because there was a time he did not understand what was going on. Oh Lord, what will be the outcome of these things? Go your way, Daniel. These words are shut up, sealed until the time of the end. Many are going to purify themselves and make themselves white and be refined. The wicked are going to continue to long for anal sex and gambling and adrenochrome. None of the wicked will ever understand, but those who are wise shall understand. From the time that the regular burnt offering is taken away and the abomination that makes desolate is set up, there will be 1,290 days. It doesn't say days and mornings. This is an example of the day year. Everybody in Daniel uses day equals year. So it was going to be the 1,290 days until something happened. We know they added 1,000 years. So it's not even there. This 1,000 years we can cancel because we'll look at Revelation 20. Satan was in a pit for Celia. That's the word that means 10 cubed. 10 times 10 times 10. It's exactly 1,000. So that's canceled. 290 years from some unknown calendar. Pick a date. The Lord had me pick the date of September 11th, 2001. You go back to 1711. That's when Satan is loosed based on this. Blessed is he who waits and arrives 335 years after Satan is loosed. Then you'll be blessed. If you make it, it's going to be rough. 45 years after 9/11. Daniel, you go your way. You're never going to be told. It's sealed up till the end of the time. You're going to sleep, rest. That means he's going to die, and then he is going to stand in his place at the end of the days, because he is not going to die because he doesn't want to receive the mark of the beast or worship the false prophet and beast. He's going to be judged with us, bringing us. We'll quickly touch on the book of Matthew in chapter 24 to show you that this is where you look when you want to know what's going on. They're going to be delivered up, tribulation, put to death, false prophets, led astray, nation against nation. It's bad to worse. But when you see the abomination of spoken of in Daniel standing in the holy place, it's on. Then you have to run to the mountains, beg them to call on us. Don't stop to pick up your coat, just go. That's when it happened. Lightning coming. Tribulation of those days. It happened then. Along the way, reading Daniel, reading Matthew, reading Revelation 19, this is how in 2016 the Lord made me want to start a channel called Flat Earth Nation Golden Age Past. That's what it became, because I read this and I saw that, okay, the abomination, the 1,000 years, well, this would have to fit. Let's go check it out. Well, this is definitely the Battle of Armageddon. This is the bright and pure, fine linen, righteous deeds of the saints. The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. Here comes, behold, faithful and true. He judges to make war, sword of his mouth. And the beast and the false prophet are captured. And they're saved. Those two are thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. I'm thinking to myself when I was reading this, when it was in the spirit time, well, where's Satan? You know that this was that thing, and these guys were thrown into it. Oh, it was all making sense. And everybody believes the sword season now, but they don't believe me because I don't believe the Trinity and things like that. But the numbers work. Satan was put into a pit for 1,000 years. That great abyss. The dragon. They really want you to know it's not the beast or the false prophet. They're burning. He's grabbing the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil. It's Satan. That's really letting you know who it is. Bound him for Celia. I don't want, there are words in the Bible that mean multitudes. There's even translated multitudes. It's translated myriads. But when they want the word that is 1,000, like our sky clock tells us, it's a calendar. The sun and the moon are a clock. It's 1,000 years. A day is 1,000 years to the Lord. A day is 1,000 years to the Lord. If you need to measure something that is exactly 1,200 feet, you'll need to do it for a Celia plus 200 more. It's 1,000 years. It's 1,000. It's 1,000. And the word itself is, that's a pretty strong root word right there. Look at these 8 right here. We're again, we'll see it's 1,000 years, it's 1,000 years, it's all Revelation 20. Because that's this word that means 10 times 10 times 10. It doesn't mean multitude, it doesn't mean myriad, it doesn't mean 40 years. It's exactly 1,000 years. That's why everybody is on board that there is a short season. It was what happened. He shut it up and sealed him. He let him out for 1,000 years. The people that didn't receive the image or the mark, they're that blessed first resurrection. Yay for those guys. 1,000 years end. Satan is released. He's going to go out and make the nations. Now, what happens at the end of the 1,000 years? Satan is released. We know that. Satan's released. Is it Revelation 6? Put in your sickle and reap. There's going to be a small remnant, kind of like staggering fugitives, that go into this time of the orphan train brain, where we've been lied to. There was nobody that ever sat around going like, we're on a spinning globe. That's all new. The history is all a lie. The going back to the beginning, go back. This was all so that they could have you end up being tracked. Even if you turn it off, take the battery out, it doesn't matter. You're tracked. Your bank account's tracked. It's coming down. Something's going to hit the fan. This isn't time to make America great again. It's time to be ready to do what they did in the past. Run for your life. There hasn't been a generation yet that beat their swords into plowshares. We have half a generation left to do it. To go without violence, to not draw a line in the sand and say, well, I guess we have to fight him to the death here. Okay, you 30% of the men, who wants to die today? How about nobody dies today? Those men take the women and the children and hide them and make sure they have clean, fresh water to drink. Live to live another day. It's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past, because the mud flood was Armageddon. Me and my friends will never tell you anything else, and you would have never heard anything else if it wasn't for us and God using us. Now we know we're called, chosen, elect, predestined from before the foundation of the earth. That doesn't mean you will not at one point in your life be predestined, elected, chosen, adopted, to seemingly voluntarily get on your knees and say something like, Father, everything points to you being the great God of creation, that everything is for you, created by you. and you've given me grace. You've changed my heart. I believe you are God. And now I believe it in my heart. What happens is this overwhelming urge to believe in your heart, confess with your mouth. You're halfway home. Hang on to the plow. Die in faith. And man, you'll have no idea. It's a mystery. It's a metamorphosis. We will be changed. We are right now seeds planted in soil, given talents by God to produce 30, 60, 90, 100-fold. We're producing. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho, aloha, arrivederci, ciao, sayonara, auf Wiedersehen, nakamain, adios, amigos. Who out there's ever been a keeper of the sycamore fig trees?